Oh, honey, buckle up! Because the story we're diving into today, it is one of the most jaw-dropping, stomach-dropping, absolutely unhinged pieces of drama I have ever had the pleasure of reacting to. And that is saying something, because you know this channel has seen some things. We have been through breakups, betrayals, petty revenge, sweet revenge, cold revenge served at room temperature. But today we are stepping into a whole new dimension of, I cannot believe this actually happened to a real human being. So if you are new here, welcome. You picked an absolutely wild day to join us. And if you've been here before, you already know. Grab your snacks, grab your drink, get comfortable, because we are not rushing through this one. Before I even get into it, I just want to say, the person at the center of this story, they went through something that would have broken most people completely. Like, not just a little crack. We're talking full structural collapse. Because it's one thing for your girlfriend to cheat on you. That alone is devastating. That alone deserves its own episode, its own therapy session, its own venting to your best friend at 2 a.m. situation. But this story? This isn't just cheating. This is cheating with someone who shared your blood. Someone who sat across from you at Christmas dinner. Someone who probably hugged you and looked you in the eyes and acted completely normal. And then, and this is the part that sent me, then they decided to get married to each other. Like, excuse me, we're going to get into every single detail, I promise. But first, let's set the scene. So, the story comes from a post that Charlotte Dobre reacted to, and if you don't know Charlotte, she is one of the queens of reaction content. She finds the most unbelievable Reddit and internet stories and breaks them down, and her reactions are always gold. So today, we're layering it. We've got the original story, we've got Charlotte's reaction, and then we've got me reacting to all of it. Triple layer drama cake. Let's eat. Okay, so here's how it starts. Our narrator, let's call him Marcus, just to make it easier to follow. Marcus had been with his girlfriend, let's call her Vanessa, for about 3 years. 3 years. That's not a little fling. That's grocery shopping together. That's meeting each other's families. That's talking about the future kind of relationship. And according to Marcus, things weren't perfect, but they were good. He described it as one of those relationships where you feel settled, comfortable, like you found your person. You know that feeling? When you just sort of exhale and think, okay, this is it. This is my person. I'm safe here. Yeah, he felt that. He trusted that. And his cousin, let's call him Derek. Derek had always been around. Family events, holidays, the occasional hangout. Marcus and Derek weren't super close, like they weren't calling each other every day, but they had that background noise kind of relationship that a lot of cousins have. You know the type. You don't have to make plans to see them, they just sort of exist in the fabric of your life. And Marcus never, not once, had a reason to look at Derek and think, this man is a threat to anything I love. Why would he? That's your family. That's the person you grew up with at the same dinner tables. Now here's where it starts to unravel. Marcus started noticing small things. Vanessa being a little more distant. Picking up her phone and walking out of the room. Coming home a little later than expected. And look, we all know that feeling. That gut feeling that something is off. But you can't quite name it yet, so you just sort of carry it around like a low-grade headache. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. You tell yourself you trust this person. You tell yourself, love means giving the benefit of the doubt. And Marcus did all of that. He gave every benefit of every doubt. He found out the wedding venue through his mom, who was very conflicted about the whole thing, and didn't realize she was giving Marcus useful information. He found out the date. He found out the approximate guest count. And he thought, what if I go, not to cause a scene, not to scream or cry or make it about him, just to go, To sit in that room, to look at both of them and let them know, with his presence alone, that he exists, that what they did didn't erase him, that he got to show up, healed and whole, on the day they were probably hoping he'd be home alone. Heartbroken, invisible. Now. Charlotte had some thoughts about this. She was going back and forth, like she always does. On one hand, she was saying, okay, I understand the impulse. And on the other hand, she was like, but this could go so wrong. And I am right there with her, because this is a high-risk, high-reward scenario, and I am both terrified and completely invested. Marcus dressed up. He wore a suit. He looked good. He specifically mentioned that he made sure he looked really, really good. And I respect that attention to detail. He showed up at the venue. He sat in the back, and he waited. Now apparently he had figured out that this wasn't going to be a super large wedding, mostly immediate family and close friends, which meant his presence was going to be noticed. He knew that going in. He was counting on it. Vanessa walked down the aisle and apparently looked gorgeous. Marcus's words, not mine, and I think it says a lot about his character that he was able to acknowledge that even in that moment. And then she looked up, scanning the faces in the pews the way brides do, probably looking for familiar, loving faces to anchor herself to. And she found one, just not the one she was expecting. Charlotte said she audibly yelped when she read what happened next, and I believe her because I did the same thing. Vanessa stopped walking. Mid-aisle, she just stopped and stared at Marcus sitting there in the back row in his very nice suit, completely calm, completely composed, and Derek, standing at the altar, followed her gaze. And then there were 3 people in that room who all knew exactly what this moment meant, and about 100 other people who were very confused about why the bride had stopped moving. There was a long pause, a very, very long pause. And then Marcus, slowly, deliberately, stood up, and he said, clearly enough for the nearby guests to hear, I think the question is whether anyone objects. And I just want everyone in this room to know exactly who these 2 people are before you celebrate them. And then he turned around and walked out. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He didn't make a speech or air every piece of dirty laundry. He just said enough to plant a seed, and then he left. Like a ghost. Like a legend. Like someone who had done their therapy homework and showed up prepared. Charlotte's reaction was, I'm not exaggerating. She stood up from her chair. She literally stood up. She was like, he walked out? He just walked out? That's it? That was the whole thing? And then she started laughing, and then she got quiet again and said, actually, that's genius. That's so much more powerful than anything else he could have done. And she is 100% right. Because here's the thing. If Marcus had shown up and screamed and cried and caused a full scene, it would have been messy and dramatic, and people might have taken Vanessa and Derek's side. They would have been able to say he was unstable, he couldn't let go, he ruined their day out of bitterness. But by showing up calm, dressed impeccably, saying just enough, and then leaving, he made it about them. He made every single person in that room turn to the person next to them and go, wait, who was that? What did he mean? Who are these people? He handed the narrative to the room and then walked away from it. That's not bitterness, that's mastery. Now, the aftermath. According to Marcus, the wedding continued, but the mood was apparently very different after that. Several family members who knew the full story were quietly horrified that Derek and Vanessa had apparently never fully addressed what they'd done or made any real acknowledgement of how it had affected Marcus. Seeing him there, composed and dignified, seemed to remind people of a side of the story they'd been allowing themselves to forget. His aunt, Derek's own mother, apparently left the reception early. His mom said she got several calls from family members checking on Marcus afterward. which was the first time a lot of them had reached out since the whole thing went down. Vanessa apparently tried to reach Marcus through mutual contacts to ask why he came and what he wanted. And Marcus's response, which he included in his post, was 4 words. "I just wanted closure." That's it. 4 words, and then he blocked her. Charlotte read that part and just held her hand up to the camera like she needed a moment. She said, "I don't know if I should be telling people to do this, but also I kind of want everyone to know that this man is a legend." And again, Charlotte, I am with you. Now look, I want to be real for a second, because this is the part where I step out of pure reaction mode and say something a little more honest. There is a version of this story where things could have gone very differently. If the family had been less understanding, if security had been called, if Derek had reacted physically. There are versions of this where Marcus's very composed plan becomes a much messier situation. And I think that's worth acknowledging. The fact that it worked the way it did, the fact that it landed the way it did, is partly because Marcus knew those people, knew that room, knew what he was doing. So I'm not up here saying everyone should crash their ex's wedding, because context matters enormously. But what I am saying is that there is something deeply, deeply human about what Marcus did. Not the crashing of the wedding specifically, but the refusal to be invisible. The refusal to let 2 people rewrite history as if he never existed, as if what they did was just a little hiccup on the way to their happily ever after. He showed up and reminded everyone, including himself, that he was real, that his pain was real, and that dignity does not have to look like silence. Charlotte ended her video by saying that the comment section was completely divided. Some people thought Marcus was a petty king who deserved a standing ovation. Some people thought he was out of line and should have stayed home. And I love that division because it means the story made people actually think. It made people sit with the question of what we owe people who hurt us and what we owe ourselves. What do I think? Honestly, I think Marcus did what he needed to do to feel whole again. I think he calculated the risk. He prepared himself emotionally. He executed it with more grace than most people could have managed, and he left before it could turn into something uglier. And I think he came out of it lighter. That's the vibe I get from the way he wrote about it. Not triumphant in a gloating way, just lighter. Like he finally, fully closed a door that had been hanging open for a 1.5 years. And that, my loves, is what I think good revenge actually looks like when it's done well. Not destruction. Not malice. Just clarity. Just presence. Just reminding the people who forgot about you that you never stopped existing. Okay, so I want to hear from you now, because this comment section is about to be light. Do you think Marcus was justified? Would you have done something different? Would you have been able to walk out as calmly as he did, or would you have said more? Would you have shown up at all? I genuinely want to know, because I think there's no single right answer here, and I think the conversation we can have about it is just as interesting as the story itself. And if you have your own story, whether it's about betrayal, about revenge, about healing, about any of it, you know where to find me. The link is in the description. The DMs are open for story submissions, and I read every single one. Everyone. Even the ones that come in at 3 a.m. And yes, that has happened, and yes, I was awake for it, because apparently my schedule is completely broken. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new, please subscribe, because we do this several times a week and every single story brings something different. If you've been here a while, you know I love you. You know I appreciate every comment and every share and every time you come back. This community is genuinely one of the best things about doing this, and I mean that every time I say it. Hit the like button if this story had you feeling something, because I know it did. It absolutely did. And I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay grounded, and remember, the best revenge really is living well. but showing up in a nice suit to your ex's wedding, a close second. Bye.